The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Narc Fantasy. Sign up with promo code SGPN to get 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football in the NFL with Rhythm. Get your Sunday free trial today by going to sportsgamblers.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Wednesday afternoon, roughly 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on October 9th. I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it is time to get into the quarterfinals here in Shanghai. Going to preview all four matches taking place on Thursday morning. But before we actually do that, do want to take care of some housekeeping. I want to remind you once again to like, subscribe on YouTube, and a reminder that you can still show support if you're listening to the podcast audio only on Spotify or Apple. So once again, you can still leave a rating and a review if you're listening to the podcast audio only. But if you are new to the show, welcome. Hopefully you enjoy. If you are returning to the show, then welcome back. Did see we did jump a couple subscribers in between this episode and the last episode. So thank you. If you are new to the channel, welcome, and hopefully you do enjoy the content. Plus a reminder, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. A lot of great tennis gambling podcast merch. We have a lot of t-shirts, sweatshirts, and mugs, different colors, all high quality or affordable. So recommend getting yourself something, not just for this show, but also for other shows with the network. Plus a reminder that the entire network is doing a fundraiser right now for the victims of Hurricane Helene, which has been devastating to the people of Western North Carolina. SGPN's teaming up with a local charity, mountainprojects.org, to help give back. The biggest donation will get a guest spot on the College Football Pick Show and a ton of gear. Go to mountainprojects.org and hit flood support. Help out today. Thank you in advance. Anyway, a reminder as well to once again support all the shows on the network by making sure that when you tune into a show, whether it involves the Tennis Gambling Podcast, MLB Gambling Podcast, NBA Gambling Podcast, etc., don't forget that you can still head over to Spotify and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Only you can prevent corporate gambling from taking over. Anyway, time to get into the actual recap of what happened on Wednesday, both for the lock and dog picks and for the actual quarterfinal, or I should say the round of 16 matches in general. Starting off with the lock and dog picks, overall decent. I feel like it's been the same story for pretty much every episode of the event. We haven't gotten reverse swept, but we have been breaking even, which is better than losing both, I guess, but still not exactly as good as sweeping. But either way, for the lock, pick the boss with Monfils on the team total at under 7.5 at -121. Monfils played well, simply put. It was kind of a weird match where I thought that Alcaraz would dominate, and Alcaraz did play really well. It wasn't like Monfils was hanging in there because Alcaraz was just having an off game or off match. I thought Alcaraz was fantastic. The real issue is that Monfils served out of his mind for about an hour and a half. But you saw Alcaraz find some openings eventually late in the second set and late in the first set as he got the job done in straight sets. But Monfils flew over the team total. Alcaraz I actually thought played very well, so I can't really blame him there. Monfils just looked really comfortable serving, and Alcaraz couldn't really do anything about it. But I did notice something during the course of the matchup, just as a gambling tip. I know that I've said this before. I'll say it again. It sounds cliche, but I believe in it. Every gambling loss that you have, you should at least try to take as a learning experience. One, because it makes you feel better. No, but actually, two, the main reason I feel like it's important to try not making the same mistake twice, trying to learn from your mistakes the first time to make sure that you make better decisions the second time around. And one thing I did learn, I think this is going to be the final time, unless you have like Iga in the French Open or something on clay. It'll probably be the last time I end up taking a team total under 7.5 in a match, unless it's potentially during the match when I know that the player that I am fading is not serving first. Because that's kind of what happened in this matchup, where I was realizing, I'm sure we've all done this before, you've been sweating out a bet, and you're calculating the math in your head. You're trying to update all the situations and how you could potentially win. We all do it. It's a miserable experience, but as a gambler, we all know what I'm talking about right now. So you're doing the math in your head with Monfils, and you realize once Monfils ends up winning the coin toss and choosing to serve first, you got problems, because that means Alcaraz has to break 3 times instead of 2, because, for example, Alcaraz could, if he served first, win the first set 6-3, for example, only breaking 1 time. So there is a chance Alcaraz could hold Monfils under this team total if he served first, and he got a break early in the first set. So you could have landed 7 that way. However, since Monfils was serving first, you had problems, because that means that Alcaraz either had to break in the last possible... Oh, no, he couldn't even do it in the last possible game. Point is, Alcaraz basically had to be serving out the first set if he was going to be serving second. And if that was going to happen, you needed 3 breaks. So by Monfils serving first in that match, we needed an extra break from Alcaraz, which is something that I kind of factored in, but didn't factor in enough. And you realize as the match went on, it was not realistic to get it, especially based on how Monfils was serving. But that was one thing that I did learn from the loss. 7.5 team totals. If you are going to be betting team totals, make sure that you actually know who serves first. The line might shift a little bit, so that is kind of a drawback, but I think it's more important to actually know who's serving first for the sake of the matches. So keep that in mind. Team total 8.5 is fine. That's still 1 break per set. You're fine. 7.5, though, is pretty dicey. And unless you know who's serving first, it's a bit too risky for me to do moving forward. So I did lose, but I did learn from it. You'll not be seeing a team total under 7.5 anytime soon on this show. For the dog, though, nice win as Wade Djokovic into full and under 20.5 games at plus 103. Never in doubt, Djokovic dominated. It took a little while for him to get going in the return games in the first set, but once he did, the match was over. Djokovic dominated, kind of the same story as the Caboli match. He's been hyper-aggressive into the actual rallies, and it seems like he's just been pushing people around the court. Svullin had no answers. It really wasn't his fault. Djokovic, though, ever since he had a bit of a struggle there against Mickelson in the first round, has been coasting, and he dominated as we picked up a nice win. Ironically, we actually switched our play mid-episode. We initially had Makic as the dog on the money line, and that was a pretty good price. Decided not to at the last minute, and of course, he won anyway. So if you actually backed both the dog plays that I had for the show, you ended up winning both, but I ended up fully switching from Makic to the under in this match. If you took both, though, you won both, so hopefully you ended up capitalizing on that. Anyway, recapping what happened in the round of 16 matches, even though I did go through a couple of them just now. Sinner beat Shelton in straight sets. Did like the over in that one that got there, as Shelton did serve well enough to go to at least a breaker, and you saw Sinner eventually get the job done in once again straight sets, but it did lay in 23. For the other matchups, you saw Medvedev beat Tsitsipas in straight sets. Did like the over there, didn't get there, as you saw Tsitsipas go to a breaker. Then he was up a break immediately in the second set, so a perfect script for a potential 3-set marathon. And Tsitsipas fell apart, which is not exactly a shock. He had an issue with the chair umpire calling a clock violation on him. Wasn't as bad as the Tiafoe situation, but the point is Tsitsipas kind of unraveled once that happened, and Medvedev coasted as he got the job done 6-3 in the final set. As for Alcaraz, beat Monfils 6-4, 7-5. Once again, I thought Alcaraz played great. Monfils looked really good, just simply put, and Monfils was not good enough to get the job done, but he was good enough to ruin our bet, but can't really blame Alcaraz for that. Thought he looked good throughout the match, and he just, once again, was unable to break Monfils enough based on how well he was serving. Besides that, you had Makic, who beat Paul the exact same way for about the second time in 2 weeks. So for the second time in about 2 weeks, Paul was up a set and a break against Makic, and he lost both times, which is pretty embarrassing, but Makic has shown himself to be a bit of a fighter recently, and he was able to get the job done in 3 sets there. So Paul, once again, had an opportunity. He was given second life after coming back against Tabilo, and he immediately squandered it as he was up a set and a break and choked it against Makic. But nice win for Makic, who's been a really solid player so far this season, and hopefully we'll see him build on that in the future. Saw Mensik beat Dimitrov. I did like the over 2.5 sets there based on Mensik's overall tradition of being a deciding set marathon guy right now, and that continued, but he got the job done as he beat Dimitrov for the second time this season. Good match, and Makic once again won in 3. You saw Mensik win in 3, so the Czechs have actually done quite well in this event, but you're looking at Mensik, who had a really solid return game in order to actually win the match. Bunch of just overall backhands down the line. Felt like he kind of found himself in the flow state, and he got the job done in the second set. But a nice job by him. After choking away the service game for the match, he actually served it out at 5-4 in the third. Choked it, then immediately got the break back to win. But Dimitrov, I thought, played okay. Mensik, though, did win the first set, lost the second, kind of a common theme for him, and he got the job done there in the third. Nice win there for the young kid, who looks like he's going to be a future, in my opinion, top 20 guy in the world. Anyway, I saw Djokovic beat Svullin comfortably, and you ended up seeing Goffin pull off the shocking upset, beating Zverev in straight sets, 6-4, 7-5. Classic Zverev being an idiot, but Goffin has had himself a great tournament. We know Goffin was a former top 10 guy in the world. He's had some injuries over the years. He's gotten up there in years, but he has been effective, and he has been very good in the event. Did have to fight off a couple of match points against Musetti a couple rounds ago. Did that, came back from a set down against Giron, and he beat Zverev. So once again, nice showing there by Goffin. Hopefully he keeps it rolling here. But in my opinion, the main shocker, besides the Zverev loss, was how badly Fritz beat the crap out of Rune. Because damn, Rune got destroyed. Fritz beat Rune 6-1, 6-2. I thought Rune was actually live in the match, and he was not. I believe it was 5-0 immediately in favor of Fritz. The match was over in what felt like about 5 minutes. Fritz was phenomenal. That was really nothing, I would say, that went right for Rune the entire match. It just felt like Fritz showed up and said, I'm going to destroy you. And Rune said, oh, all right, I guess so. And then Fritz destroyed him. So, yeah, I was just completely wrong about that one. Fritz was not looking that great in the first couple rounds, beat Watanuki in straight sets, but he's battled some injuries, not exactly in great form. And we saw him struggle against Opmain in the first round, going to 2 tie breaks. Rune was in good form, but not on Wednesday, because damn, he got destroyed. But yeah, I see Welly mentioning that it should have went 360 pass, imploded. It's exactly what happened. I got nothing else to add there. He was once again up a break immediately. Then he ended up getting a clock violation. And at that point, he mentally checked out. And of course, Medvedev is a guy who, even though he has not been as trustworthy over the last year, he still keeps a lot of balls in play. He forces you to beat him most of the time. And if you're mentally elsewhere, you're going to lose. And we saw Medvedev take over once that clock violation issue happened, as Tsitsipas got broken a couple of times to give back the break and to get broken again en route to a straight set loss. So pretty unfortunate there, but either way, overall a nice round of 16 for us. Did like Makic, like the over 2.5 sets in that one, like the over in games for the Shelton Sinner match, thought that would be competitive. Did like the Mensik over 2.5 sets as well against Dimitrov. And yeah, overall not that bad. Once again, split the lock and dog picks. We'll look for a sweep here in the Thursday matches. Anyway, time to get into the actual 4 quarterfinal matches. But before we do that, I want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by McFantasy because they have a lot of great menu items on their pick'ems. And a reminder that they have the NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, WNBA, NASCAR, and tennis as well. Their lobby is jam-packed with a lot of profit boosts. And a reminder, you can have specials and boosts on all your flex entries. For the entry, I think for this one, I'm going to go with Zach Charbonnet in the Thursday night game. Give me the higher on his receptions for this matchup, or receiving yards. I don't mind it. Point is, though, I know Seattle's offensive line is extremely banged up. The Giants killed that offensive line, and Charbonnet's been a very solid pass catcher so far this season. Don't mind the receptions higher or the receiving yards higher. I see Gina running for his life and tossing a decent amount of checkdowns into that Thursday night game. Anyway, a reminder that when you do sign up, make sure you use the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 bonus cash on a fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened in the round of 16. Time to move on into the Thursday quarterfinal matches in Shanghai. Starting off with the actual first match on the card. Should be a very, very fun one. Trying to see what the exact schedule is, and this is the schedule. You probably have the best match first, because you have Sinner against Medvedev kicking off the slate at around 3 a.m. Eastern time. For this one, Sinner is around minus 340. You have Medvedev at around plus 270. For the actual game spread, minus 3.5 for Sinner, plus 3.5 for Medvedev. Plus money, though. Plus 110, though, for Medvedev. For the over-under, you have around 21.5 games, minus 140 on the over, or 22 at minus 115. For the set spread here, Sinner in straight sets is plus 130. Sinner in straight sets is minus 110. Medvedev in I should say to win at least one set is minus 120. For the over 2.5 sets, I see plus 140 or even plus 170 on Caesars if you shop around. Now, for the head-to-head, it's been a very interesting set of head-to-head matches in their careers because it was a tale of two halves. Because Medvedev owned them in the early portion of their careers, then Sinner took over and dominated almost every match. Now, I will point out that a lot of their matches have been very competitive recently. Going through the last couple of meetings, we saw them in the U.S. Open have a very weird 4-setter. Wimbledon was a 5-setter. Miami was a destruction. Sinner beat him 6-1, 6-2. Australian Open, of course, was the final, where Medvedev won the first 2 sets, then Sinner came back and won in 5. ATP Finals, though, went to 3 sets from last year. Vienna went to 3 sets from last year. So if you actually do the math, it does mean that 5 of the last 6 meetings did go to did not end in straight sets. So with that being the case, I do expect a bit of a marathon here. Sinner, we've seen drop some sets recently. He has dropped at least 1 set in 4 of his last 8 matches, and Medvedev has been good so far in the courts in Shanghai. I think Sinner's going to win, but if you're asking where the value is, I think it's on the over. I think you're looking at what should be a close matchup. I think you're looking at what should be, once again, a matchup that has a bit of, I'd say, drama to it, because these two, when they get together, tend to have some back-and-forth battles. But I am going to go with the over in this one, like the over 2.5 sets. I think plus 170 is a great price. Don't mind the Sinner team total over 12.5. which I do see at minus 140, that I do find quite appealing. If you want to go through the last couple head-to-head meetings just for reference here, the U.S. Open matchup did not have it, but Sinner did go over this number anyway because they split the first 2 sets. But there has been a pretty solid amount of breakers or 7-5 sets in the head-to-head in their careers. So you might get a breaker in there, maybe a 7-5, or maybe just a 3-set war that Sinner wins. Point is, couple ways for Sinner to get over the team total of 12.5 that I do like, and I think that is definitely worth something. I think Sinner's going to win, but I think Medvedev does not roll over, and the match is close, and I think that Sinner eventually gets the job done barely in what should be a very fun match to start the quarterfinal slate. Moving on to the next matchup, you have a rematch of the Davis Cup match from a couple weeks ago, actually, between Alcaraz and Makic. Alcaraz around minus 1,100. You have Makic at around plus 750. For the game spread, minus 5.5 for Alcaraz at around even money, plus 5.5 for Makic at minus 120. For the over-under in games, you have around 20.5. For the set spread, Alcaraz in straight sets is minus 240. Makic to win a set is plus 190. The over 2.5 sets is plus 240. Now, once again, Alcaraz did not do us any favors in the match on Wednesday, as Monfils did go over the team total to lose us the lock. However, I said before, I am not going to blame that on Alcaraz. I thought he actually played very well. I just thought Monfils played better than I could imagine, and I thought that Monfils would be fatigued after having back-to-back 3-setters. Did not happen. I thought Monfils looked very good, and I thought that Alcaraz did enough to get by. But Monfils played well enough to beat a lot of top players on tour. I thought he played very well. And Alcaraz, once again, played well enough to win, but it was almost impossible for him to play well enough to actually cover that team total. So I'm not going to blame Alcaraz. I thought he played very well, and I think that he has been the best player in this event by a decent margin. So for the actual slate and for the overall matchup here, I think Alcaraz wins comfortably. I get the argument is they had a competitive matchup in the Davis Cup before Makic got injured, where Makic won the first set in a tiebreak, and then Alcaraz eventually won the second set 6-1, and Makic retired in the third set. But I think you're looking at a spot where Alcaraz was not exactly in great form in the Davis Cup when he entered it. That was his first match there, I believe. And since then, he has been really picking it up a notch. So I think that Alcaraz will look very sharp here. I think he's going to win. Makic has been playing good tennis. I'm aware of it. He's a solid server as well. But I do think he will drop a set pretty handily to Alcaraz, probably a 6-3 or 6-2 in there. I thought Alcaraz, once again, played extremely well, and Makic had a hard time against Paul. Eventually got it together, but I think that Alcaraz will sense some weakness. He'll jump on. I think he'll win comfortably. I like the under in this matchup. I think that Alcaraz probably wins like 6-3, 6-3, if I had to guess. Give me the under in this one, a minus 110. Trying to find a way to extract a minus 240 in straight sets favorite to win, but to also get a decent price on. I think minus 110 is a good price. If you want to go for the Alcaraz team total under, that's at 130, which is not as appealing. I think I'd rather just go with the under. But Makic, I think he's probably going to get buried in this one. He's played well recently, I get it. But Alcaraz, once again, just a level or two above. I think he'll get the job done pretty comfortably in this one. Moving on to the next matchup. You have a fun one between Fritz and Goffin, which is a very unexpected quarterfinal matchup. Fritz is a massive favorite. Fritz is around minus 650. Goffin's around plus 470. For the game spread, you have around minus 4.5 for Fritz, plus 4.5 for Goffin. The over-under in games is around 21.5. For the set spread here, Fritz in straight sets is minus 155. Goffin to win a set is minus 125. For the over 2.5 sets, you have around plus 190. Now, Fritz was once again not playing great tennis entering last match. He was fine against Watanuki, won straight sets, but of course Watanuki has not been great for the last couple of months, but he ended up beating Ottman, and that was not easy. So we saw him lose in the first round to Fees in Tokyo. In hindsight, that loss aged very well because Fees won the entire tournament. But the point is, Fritz was not playing great tennis here. Then Rune showed up, and Fritz beat the hell out of him. So Fritz kind of found his form again, and we'll see if that can translate to a nice, easy win here against once again, a shocking quarterfinalist here in Shanghai. As for Goffin's path, he beat Duckworth in straight sets, then came back against Musetti after once again being down potentially a couple match points there. Then he came back against Giron, won that one, and then ended up beating Zverev in straight sets. So going to the head-to-head between them, I will point out the head-to-head is currently tied 1-1. They faced off in Doha in 2021. Fritz did win in a final set breaker. Faced off in Cincinnati in 2019, and Goffin did win in 3. So both matches were dated. Can't really use them, as both matches were 3+ years, away from this match. But Goffin has been fine. And Fritz, you could argue, is the much better server. That is not an argument, but the point is, can he do enough to sustain his level to bury Goffin in this matchup? And you know what? I'm going to say no. Maybe it's just because I'm trying to find something in this match I actually like, and I really don't have much. But I think I'm tempted by the Gofen plus 4.5 games here. I think Gofen keep it interesting. I think Gofen is a player that has been in solid form for most of the season. I know it would have been a lot cooler if he didn't choke away a 5-0 lead in the fifth set of the first round of Wimbledon. But I do think that Gofen has been playing some good tennis lately, and I do think after beating Zverev, the confidence will be there. He beat Musetti, who's had a very good year in general. We know that Giron can be a tricky player on hard court, but I like how Gofen's played. I think Fritz is going to win, but I wonder if the line's a bit inflated after Rune getting buried in that Wednesday match. I do wonder how much of that was Fritz being great and how much of it was Rune being terrible. Probably somewhere in the middle. But I think Gofen can keep the match interesting. The two head-to-head meetings were very close. It was dated, but the point is Gofen does keep the ball in play. We know Fritz sometimes has an issue of rally tolerance, and I do think that you're looking at Gofen, who can lose this match by a respectable 6-4, 6-4. Pretty straightforward win. You wouldn't really blink an eye at it. Fritz wins comfortably, but he does not cover. I think Gofen can keep it interesting. I'll take Gofen plus the games at plus 4.5. Not going to bet it, though. No interest in it, but I think for the sake of this matchup, I would prefer Gofen based on his current form to keep the match interesting without totally embarrassing himself over the course of these 2 or 3 sets. Moving on to the last matchup, you have Djokovic against Mensik. For this one, of course, Djokovic is a massive favorite, as Djokovic is around minus 900. Mensik's around plus 600. For the game spread, you have around minus 5 for Djokovic or plus 5 for Mensik. Over-unders around 20.5 games. If you want to go for the set spread here, Djokovic in straight sets is minus 210. Mensik to win 8 sets plus 170. Over 2.5 sets is plus 220. For team total, you have Djokovic. Team total is over-under at 12.5. For Mensik, you have the over-under 8. The over is minus 125. The under is minus 105. Now, they never faced off in the head-to-head. Djokovic has been great, though. He has not dropped a set here. Should have beaten Mickelson more comfortably. Did blow a couple breaks for leads, but he got the job done in straight sets. Then he turned on the afterburners because he was able to destroy Kaboli and Safulin, dropping less than 6 games in both matches. So he has been just on the warpath right now. Mensik has been a 3-set magnet, and I've said this before. Point is, though, he has gone to 3 sets in all 4 matches here. So fatigue could be an issue. Nice win there against Dimitrov, but based on how well Djokovic has played, I just see one-way traffic here. I think Djokovic wins comfortably. The argument is maybe Mensik can get to 5 games in a set. I don't see it. Djokovic is playing such an attacking level of tennis that I think Mensik will be on his back foot the entire time. And that's not where he wants to be. Mensik is a pretty good rallier, but I think he wants to take control with his solid forehand and with his pretty decent serve. But I think Djokovic, once again, will use his aggression to dominate this overall matchup, and I really just expect to see a spot where Djokovic, once again, kind of takes control early. Kos and Mensik had a good run to the quarters, but I think it ends here. I'm going with the under, kind of a repeat of what happened in the last match against Safulin. I just think Djokovic takes over, and I think Mensik has no response. Give me Djokovic in the under 20.5 games for this one at around minus 110 as my favorite play. Trying to find a way to turn a minus 210 favorite in straight sets to get the job done while also finding some value. Give me the under, once again, 20.5 games there at minus 110. If you want 21.5 games, you can find that at minus 140. I think it's a bit juicy for me. Give me the 20.5 instead as my play. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the actual quarterfinal breakdown. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks, but I want to remember once again that we are brought to you by BetUS because BetUS has been around for more than 30 years. They also have a lot of early deposits using crypto and a lot of you can easily deposit with crypto and get lightning fast payouts. US players are always welcome. And a reminder, if you sign up and deposit $100, you have a chance to win a 1960 Ford Mustang, which is pretty cool. Use our link to sign up and get a 1 to 25% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Go to sportsgamblingcom/BetUS to once again get a solid deal that you won't find anywhere else. 125% deposit bonus in your first 3 deposits using the link sportsgamblingcom/BetUS, promo code SGPN. So then we send you BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's proud partner, Rhythm, is the number 1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive models in seconds. Get predictions on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. A reminder, you can also build your model. You can copy one of the top performing models, or you can just have Rhythm do it for you. Press build a model for me. Rhythm will give you predictions for every game and player props. And they also have a ton of stats, research, trend analysis, and they'll give you even more betting insights. And a reminder, try it out for free. You can get a 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgame.com rhythm, sportsgame.com, RATHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the quarterfinals here in Shanghai. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I am going to go to the last match, actually, between Djokovic and Mensik. For this one, I am going to go with the total. I am going to go with the under 20.5 games here at -110. Just laid out the case, but I'll do it again. Djokovic has been dominant so far in this tournament, and especially the last two matches. Each of the last two matches have landed below 18 games. So Djokovic beat Kaboli, who's very solid, has had a good year, ended up beating Asfoon, who's a solid hardcourt player, and those matches weren't even close. Djokovic found his groove and immediately took over. The aggression has translated very well to the fast-paced courts here in Shanghai, and I think Mensik will be overwhelmed by it. Plus, we know Djokovic is the best player of all time, and he had not played for a couple months, so maybe the match against Mickelson was a bit of rust, but he got back on track quickly, and he's looked like a very, very solid player, a very dangerous player here. I'm just expecting Djokovic Alcaraz in the final at this point, maybe Sinner in there, but Djokovic has been coasting. I see it happening again. Plus, Mensik, once again, has gone to a deciding set in all four matches here, so fatigue could be an issue for this one. That match against Dimitrov was not easy, but based on how Djokovic has played, I can't really go against him. I see a very simple win here. Give me a 6-4, 6-3, 6-3, 6-3 final. Give me Djokovic to win and for this match to go under at 20.5 at -110 as my lock. For my dog, going back to the first match, I said before that I found a +140 on the over 2.5 sets and a +170. Hell yeah. Give me the +170. Give me the Medvedev and Sinner over 2.5 sets at +170. That's available on Caesars. Once again, Caesars does have the best price for over 2.5 sets. I noticed that a long time ago. I'm sharing it again. Caesars lines are very generous for over 2.5 sets. Anyway, Sinner has lost at least one set in 4 of his last 5 matches. We know that Sinner has been good and made the final in the past tournament in Beijing. Didn't win, but he didn't look great throughout most of that tournament. And so far in this tournament, he's been fine, but he has been vulnerable. And I do think that Sinner can drop a set. He has been doing so in half of his last 8 matches. Plus the head-to-head, the main reason why we're going to take it, 5 of the last 6 head-to-head meetings did not end in straight sets. So based on that, I think Medvedev can keep this close. I think Sinner might have a let-up once again for one of these sets. But you're looking at a head-to-head history that is very competitive. 5 of the last 6 did not end in straight sets. We saw them face off a couple times this year, and most of them did end in, once again, either 4 or 5 sets, or even just did not end in straight sets. But you're looking at the head-to-head meetings this season, faced off in the U.S. Open. That went to 4. Wimbledon, that went to 5. Face off in Miami, that ended in straight sets. Face off in the Australian Open, and that went to 5 as well. So 3 of the 4 meetings this season did not end in straight sets. That's good enough for me. +170 is a great price. I'll take that any day of the week. So once again, the plays for the quarterfinals, the lock's going to be on Djokovic and Mensik under 20.5 games at -110. For the dog, I am going to go with Medvedev and Sinner over 2.5 sets at +170. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Reminder back once again for the semis here in Shanghai. A reminder, you can find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show, WNBA show. Going to have an episode tonight for the WNBA Finals, actually. Game 1 taking place on Thursday. So check out that podcast with Terrell and I. A reminder, I'll also be on the MLB show later this week, and I'll be on the Mothership show. I'll be on the SGP show tonight to go through some Jet stuff and some NFL, so keep that in mind. Plus, a reminder before I forget, don't forget to like, subscribe on YouTube, and a reminder, don't forget to rate the podcast on Spotify or Apple. Does go a long way. Thank you to all of you, and good luck to all of you, and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.